Hi there, it's Rain, and I wanted to go over this thing. There's this game that I was following the development of, you might say, called Yandere Simulator, and some things happened recently that caused Yandere Dev's character to be very heavily criticised. So just forget about all of that. If you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. If you don't, you don't. But I recently found out that he'd posted an apology of some sorts. So I thought I'd read through it and address everything said in here. Hey, whatever happened to the whole tinyBuild thing? If you don't know, tinyBuild is a company that helps with producing games. And they reached out to Yandere Dev to help with his game, Yandere Simulator. But he's kind of addressing whether he's with the company or not in this piece of writing. It says, in my previous 2 videos, I discussed some problems that I've been facing, and a lot of people asked, shouldn't your publisher, tinyBuild, be helping you with that sort of thing? Well, now's probably the right time to tell you that tinyBuild and I stopped working together in December of last year. There's a reason why I was extremely reluctant to say anything about it for a very long time. Ending a partnership is negative news, and I was terrified of accidentally violating that part of the contract that forbids speaking negatively of the other parties of the contract. So to stay on the safe side, I decided to simply not acknowledge it at all. However, staying completely silent about tinyBuild has only caused confusion. I think it's important that I talk about it openly so that people don't fill in the blanks with their imagination. In short, tinyBuild and I had a lot of experiences which taught us that we aren't good for one another. The main reasons why I wanted to be with a publisher faded away over time, and the partnership wasn't working out for either of us, so we went our separate ways. I kind of wish that things had turned out differently, but I'm also 100% okay with being self-published. Whenever people speculate about why I'm no longer with tinyBuild, they try to extrapolate information from some vague remarks I've made about having difficulty working with a programmer. Although it's true that the programmer and I had disagreements from time to time, it was absolutely not the primary reason why tinyBuild and I stopped working together. The plan was for the programmer to refactor certain aspects of the code, but it proved to be impossible to refactor that code while I was still making changes and additions to the game. It wasn't the sort of situation where we could just work in separate branches, then merge our work. If the programmer entirely changed the nature of the script, then all work I did in the meantime would be incompatible and would have to be tossed out. To avoid doing any wasted work, I'd have to stop updating the game for a period of several months while the code was being refactored. Going to be a long period of time without any updates would be a death stroke in the game's popularity, so we decided not to refactor those scripts. As a result, the programmer couldn't do anything of major importance and could only make little adjustments. This led to a lot of arbitrary code changes, which caused us to have disagreements, which led to me making vague remarks about having difficulty working with the programmer. Having an expensive programmer sitting around with his hands tied is bad for every party involved. So the programmer returned to working on other projects for tinyBuild instead. Days afterwards, when discussing completely different subjects, tinyBuild and I realised we should go separate ways. When people were making comments like, did tinyBuild drop Yandere Dev? Did Yandere Dev fire the tinyBuild programmer? And did Yandere Dev not understand the programmer's code? I desperately wanted to shut down all the rumours by explaining the facts, but I was afraid of saying anything at all about the subject of tinyBuild because I didn't want to accidentally trip some clause in the contract. I was also afraid of letting the questions remain there in the comments section since it would cause people to doubt the game. My brilliant solution was to start deleting comments mentioning tinyBuild. What the hell was I thinking? Boy, was that stupid. It looked really suspicious and sketchy, and it seemed like I was trying to cover up something dirty, so people started calling me out. This was compounded by also having a lot of hate comments completely unrelated to tinyBuild, but that's a different subject. It was snowballing into a worse and worse situation with each passing second. I had no clue how to handle all of this happening at once, so I panicked and just disabled comments everywhere. And that was even more stupid, but maybe I'll talk about that in a separate blog post. After typing it all out, I realised that explaining the tinyBuild situation was easier than I thought. Now I feel horrible for putting it all off for so long. It caused confusion and allowed rumours to grow. This is definitely one of the most stupid mistakes I've ever made since I started working on Yandere Simulator. Ever since the beginning of the game's development, I never really planned to have a publisher. The age of the internet has made self-publishing much easier. A publisher can be a nice bonus for a few reasons, but it was never really necessary for the project to succeed. Yandere Simulator will be fine without a publisher, but it won't be fine if I keep making stupid mistakes like this one. So I'll use this as an extremely important learning experience and hopefully never do something this dumb ever again. I'm still not ready to turn on comments just yet, because it won't be easy to handle all the hate that I'll have to see after screwing up so badly. Right now, I really don't want to spend much time thinking about the comments. I just want to crawl into a hole and focus on the game for a while. This isn't the only subject that I need to address in a blog post, but well, I want to take things one at a time. I definitely should have explained the tinyBuild situation months ago. I'm sorry. I hope you can forgive me. So this is definitely one of the biggest things that has caused Yandere Dev to be in a very difficult position. And it's good that he addressed it. I want to talk about if this is enough. If this is enough to kind of undo the wrong that has happened and put the game back on track to becoming potentially successful. There are quite a few things that need to be done. Apologising is the first step. One of the worst things you can do when you make a mistake is to double down, is to start freaking out, start insulting people, start blocking everyone, all that kind of stuff. That's bad. That's terrible idea. Disabling comments is terrible. It just shows that, for one, you can't take criticism for a start. You can't handle it when people are a bit rude to you on the internet. If you disable comments, you can't hear anything. You can't hear people being nice to you, you can't hear people being rude to you, you can't hear people giving you valid criticism. And sometimes that valid criticism does come in the form of insults, sometimes it does come in the form of something that you don't really want to hear, and maybe you disagree with it at the same time. But to just shut everything off, shut everything away, is really self-destructive, because how are you going to progress in something when you can't see it from that outside perspective, that audience perspective? You need that to improve yourself. So tinyBuild is not working with Yandere Dev. Fine. It's because they couldn't agree on how the game was to be pushed forward. So a little thing about Yandere Dev's coding. I'm not a coder myself. I hope to be eventually, but currently my information on coding is very close to non-existent. Yandere Dev's coding has been very heavily criticised. The way it is structured does cause a lot of problems in terms of making the game, and Yandere Dev has expressed this himself multiple times. He seems to express this fear of not updating the game, and I also think that fear has shown through how the game has progressed over this period of time. He's not making progress on the game. He's making these little Easter eggs. He's making costumes. Well, I don't think he's making it, but he's implementing them in the game. He has other people volunteering and working with him. The fact that there's so many little things coming in the game that is not the game in its entirety, kind of approaching some kind of conclusion, just shows that he's finding comfort in fixing these little things, adding these little elements and changing how certain things look. And he's focusing on these little things because it's very easy and very comfortable. But when it comes to making games, and I'm not trying to say I have experience working with games, working on games. I haven't made any games ever, actually. But I know it's best to complete the game in its simplest form. That's the first thing you should do. If that means you have a bunch of cubes walking around a 3D world, or you have squares, flying around in a 2D world, then that's what you have to do to get yourself a finished game. It's not about making a finished game from start to finish. It's about making a game and then going over it again and then going over it again, and then eventually you'll get to the point where you're adding these little tiny elements like outfits and the colour of something. You're not really supposed to be doing that when you start, because when you start doing these little things, the game feels like it's taking so much longer than necessary to finish. And also when you're fixing bugs, you're giving yourself more problems because you've already added these little elements that are not necessary to have a finished game. You're giving yourself more work than you need to because you're not working on bugs for the game, you're working on bugs for the game plus all these extra features that you've added, all these extra unnecessary features that you've added. And he does that, and I believe he does that because it takes so long to fix bugs, it takes so long to work on his game, so he only does short things. He doesn't want to wait 10 minutes just to do one or two things. He'd rather just wait 10 minutes and then maybe add a new hairstyle to the game, and that's about it. I don't know. People have said that with the code structured the way Yandere Dev has structured his code, there's going to be lots of bugs. Every time there's a change, there's going to be more bugs. There's always something affecting something else in a way that you don't really want it to because of the way you structured your code. That also apparently makes the game run a lot slower than it probably could have had the game been optimized like what tinyBuild was doing to the game when they were changing the code. They were trying to optimize it. But Yandere Dev had made a game before, and it apparently was criticised by a game dev, and that person pointed out the problems with the code, right? And Yandere Dev didn't seem to want to listen to that, because here we are again, problems with the code. And the reason why Yandere Dev and tinyBuild are not working together anymore is because the code that they're implementing is not matching with the code that Yandere Dev has currently. He's making this harder for himself. If he's having problems now waiting for things to get done while he's fixing bugs, imagine how long he's going to have to wait in the future. If he has to wait 10 minutes now to fix a bug, he might be waiting an hour to fix a bug in the future. And what does that mean? What does that say for the game? It's never going to get finished, is it? Because the longer you wait, the less motivated you're going to be. Honestly, he should have just taken tinyBuild's hand, explained to his audience that, hey, you know, my code is ridiculous. tinyBuild are changing it to something that's easier to work on for them. I'm going to let them do this, and I'm going to trust you guys to trust me to get this thing done. And from then onwards, everything would have been so much more easier. He wouldn't have had this problem with having to ditch tinyBuild. But at the same time, you know what, if you want to wait an hour to fix a couple of bugs, you can wait an hour to fix a couple of bugs. This doesn't mean the game is never going to get finished, but it does mean it's going to take a hand and a foot to get it finished. It's not going to be easy at all. Unfortunately, this apologies one thing. I honestly don't think it should have been just in this really secluded area. It's on the blog, right? I didn't know this was here because I'd already unsubscribed from Yandere Dev because of some other things he was doing. I found this out through someone else that he'd apologised. Honestly, he should really upload a video to his YouTube channel and apologise, and he should really think about things beyond this, because this is one aspect, but there are tons of other aspects. And honestly, if he'd just listened to his criticism instead of blocking it out because there was a couple mean comments made about it, he'd probably have made a better apology. In his Discord, there was a few screenshots of some remarks that he was saying to other people that were rather rude. And you can't be rude to the people who support you. You really can't disrespect people like that. And it's really sad how he treats his fans. You know, it's one thing doing it in private on Discord where you believe that no one will be able to criticize you for it, but to do it in public as well. On the video Where's Midori, he full on calls his fans edgy teenage kids. Not all of them, but So even though he's not referring to most of them, he's referring to enough of them that made him want to close his comment section. I mean, that remark isn't there anymore, but there were screenshots of it, and I saw it personally myself. And then for him to talk to his fans in this way that makes him... It's almost like he believes he's this higher power, and he talks down to his fans. Like, oh, you shouldn't care about this thing, you shouldn't ask me about this thing, you shouldn't say these kinds of words. It's really disrespectful. You know, at the end of the day, these are the people who support you, these are the people who have you back, these are the people who are still paying you on Patreon. At the end of the day, they're the reason that you're doing something that you like doing. Creative jobs like this are not easy to uphold because not everyone has that support that Yandere Dev has. And he's lost so much because of doing the things that he's doing and the way he's decided to do them. And just finding comfort in people who say nice things to you is not how you progress in this world. The world isn't structured like that. There is constructive criticism in insults sometimes, and you have to look past the insults. You have to grow a backbone and just take it on sometimes. And yeah, it's going to be tricky, but after seeing this apology, you know, I have a little bit of hope for this game, but honestly, this is just one step forward. You can take one step forward and you can take 1,000 steps backwards. It just depends what happens from here onwards. And, you know, I really hope Yandere Dev sorts himself out, fixes his behaviour, and gets this thing going. You don't have to fix your code if you don't want to. I'd honestly recommend it, because what have you got to lose, honestly? You've already kicked yourself in the shin multiple times. Honestly, people criticising him being pervy, it's not that big of a deal. Honestly, there are lots of people who are kind of gross like that. But it's... being a bit of a perv is not going to have an effect on how good your game is, in how you treat your audience. The important things now is not how he looks like. It's not who he likes or bloody who he flirts with or what games he plays. It doesn't matter. What matters is how he treats his audience and if he's working on this game or not. Because first off, if he's not working on the game, he needs to explain this to people. He needs to stop taking people's money. But if he is working on the game, regardless of how he's working on the game, regardless of if he's fixing his code or not, if he's working on the game, then that's great, and it has a chance, and I'm not going to deny him that truth. You know, if he tries, he has a chance, regardless of what's happened in the past. The past doesn't have to decide your future if you just fix it, I guess, and right your wrongs. This apology is okay. It's an okay apology. It's a good thing that he's figured out. It's a good thing that he's figured out that he's done something wrong. You definitely shouldn't be censoring people just because they're saying stuff about tinyBuild that you're not working with anymore. You've been indirectly saying bad things about tinyBuild, so I don't understand how you were so afraid to talk that you're not with tinyBuild anymore. This is much nicer than the things you've been saying indirectly about tinyBuild. I guess it's okay. I'm not going to resubscribe because it's going to take a lot more than this for me to be like, you know what, this game deserves another chance. But you know, for those who are way more forgiving and care a lot more about this game than I do, at least he's apologising, and you should be happy about that. He's taking one step forward. One step forward is better than no steps forward. And I honestly wish Yandere Dev the best of luck with this game. And I hope he treats his fan base and followers much nicer, because honestly they do deserve it. For sticking with you for so long. Thanks for watching this video. I'll see you another time. Bye.